Thank you all for coming.
She's telling my first line.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you all for coming. Oh, we're glad you're here. For those of you who are unfamiliar with Indivisible Columbus Georgia, just want to tell you a little bit about it. We champion racial, economic, environmental, and social justice, and the values of inclusion, tolerance, and justice for all. We are one of over 6,000 groups across the country dedicated to resisting all efforts of the current administration to undermine these values. Our efforts focus primarily on Columbus, Georgia representatives, Bishop Ferguson, as well as our senators, Perdue and Isaacson. We also organize regular events to better educate our members about various topics, foster discourse with our public officials, and increase public awareness of our government's actions. Please join us on Facebook on our closed group if you're interested in getting regular calls to action where you can actually do something, and that would be on Facebook, Indivisible Columbus Georgia, spelled out Georgia. We have several upcoming events that we want to share with you. On September the 8th, we will host Indivisible Columbus Georgia Rises for Climate, Justice, and Jobs, a rally and march that will take place at the main stage on Broadway. And this is in solidarity with the People's Climate Movement. We'll feature several speakers sharing their stories about environmental justice and the impacts the state of the environment has on all of us. We will be sharing more information about the speakers in the coming weeks. We're looking for volunteers to help with this event. For more information, please reach out to Katie Clark. Katie, can you stand up and wave at everybody? If you're interested in helping, get with Katie afterwards. October the 12th at 6 p.m. at the library, Indivisible will be a stop on Project Vote Smart's national tour. Project Vote Smart, nonprofit and nonpartisan since 1988, provides free, unbiased, and in-depth information about current officials, candidates, issues, legislation, and voting. They just completed their voter self-defense system and are embarking on an epic national bus tour to deliver the system to voters across the country. We're proud to bring this event to Columbus, Georgia, and hopes many will learn to get informed on the current candidates and learn to vote smart. Before I introduce our speaker, I would ask all of you in the audience to make sure your cell phones are silent. Also, please hold your questions until the end of our speaker's presentation. Thank you. I'm excited to introduce our speaker, Mr. Jeffrey Selman. Mr. Selman was born in the Bronx, New York City. As a young man, he worked for the U.S. government in the War on Poverty as a VISTA with the Navajo. I don't know if all the young people will know what it is, but us old people do. He earned a BA in history from Lehman College. He was both an elementary and a high school teacher. He switched careers later, becoming a computer programmer, which brought him to Georgia. That's a culture shock coming from the Bronx in Georgia. Here he met his wife and started a family. His son's attendance in Cobb County public schools opened his eyes to the unconstitutional actions taking place there. With the help of the ACLU, he took on Cobb County schools, winning an important court case protecting science education from religious interference. In 2015, he published a book titled God Sent Me, a textbook case on evolution versus creation. And he's going to have some of those on sale here for way less than they are online if anybody's interested in buying one. Mr. Selman is affiliated with Americans United for Separation of Church and State, the American Civil Liberties Union, the National Center for Science Education. He's also a vegetarian, which I can attest to because we just went to lunch with him. It was a new experience. He was a former advisory board member of Georgia Citizens for Integrity in Science Education. He is currently co-president of the Atlanta chapter of Americans United for Separation of Church and State. I would call him a lifetime activist, Mr. Jeffrey Selman.
Well, coming from the Bronx, you must realize I'm very shy. Okay. It's so hard to explain. Can you hear me?
No, you don't want to use the mic, but.
Here, you want this one?
I got it.
Jeff, you want this one, hands-free one? Would that be better?
How was the volume, everybody? Was it okay? Should we bring it up, or it was good?
A little low.
A little low? Let me turn it up a little.
Okay, well, I've got this one. This one can be turned up too.
Oh, it can be turned up there?
Okay, here. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Sure. Never.
Your shy voice is still on.
Okay.
Very shy.
Did y'all hear me good? Okay, then.
Okay, can you hear me? Okay, good.
That's as high as it goes.
One thing that we all have to recognize, okay, and part of it is this word, indivisible. I'm really loving this. When I saw this group invite me, I said, I'm coming. Okay? Because regardless of what your belief structure is, we're all human. We all have a right to have respect. Okay? And I made that assumption from the day my grandmother told me, because she was an immigrant from Europe, that we're all people. Grew up in a neighborhood in the Bronx, it was mixed. Okay? We were all different religions, all different nationalities. But guess what? We had in common. We were human. We were indivisible. So this really, I'm getting chills, because it's so important to me that I don't care where you're from or what your belief structure is, we're humans. We got to work together. And since I was raised that way, and I came to Georgia, I made an assumption all the bad stuff was gone already. Okay? Okay. My wife says I shouldn't make people laugh too much, but thank you. I met my wife down here. She's from South Burlington, Vermont. I'm from the South Bronx. So I guess the South part brought us together. As was said, we got married, we had a child, sent him to school. And out of the clear blue sky, this anti-science sticker, pro-specific religious belief, shows up in a science textbook. How many people here studied French? How many people studied German?
Ich kann auf Deutsch sprechen.
Ich verstehe nicht gut nicht. That's Yiddish. How many people studied Spanish? Okay. Things mean specific things. And when you're teaching French in a Russian class, you're not teaching the subject you're there to learn, are you? So if you're in a science class and the basis of the science technology is denied, especially with wrong language, that's wrong. You're not going to teach Russian in a French class, French in a Spanish class. You're there to learn that specific language, not something else. So if you're in a science class and they stick a sticker in the textbook saying, evolution is a theory, not a fact, and should be carefully considered. First of all, they didn't know their own subject that they're talking about. Because in science, a theory is based upon fact. It's not a hypothesis. If it was a hypothesis initially, they say, this is a guess we have. Let's do some experiments and find out what's going on here. And once we have that evidence, we come to a conclusion. If down the road some other things happen that put a little shade of gray on it, we reevaluate. But once those experiments are done and facts are found out, it goes from a hypothesis to a theory. So the sticker itself was wrong. It was like an explosion happening in my face. Now you can tell I'm very shy. I don't do things a lot. No laughs what happened. As soon as I saw that, my whole demeanor of where we're living changed. And I said, this can't be. My son's got to go to school and get a good education. And I'm not a person against faith. I have my beliefs. My wife was raised Catholic, I was raised Jewish. Okay? We have friends who are Muslim. We have friends from different religions all over the place. You should know about each other so you can get along. But you can't say mine is right and yours is wrong. Well, I can't say you can't say it because they do say it. Okay? Faith is a wonderful thing. Okay? It's wonderful. But you can't turn it into a business and go in conflict with other belief structures. Because then you start taking over. And you start dominating, and you start crushing and taking freedom away. When I first became involved in this, the ACLU was an organization I looked up to that we could go and get help from. And this is a very important thing. There are a lot of things happening out there. They have a lot of things on their hands. I called them for probably 2 to 3 months before I finally got an answer. It's in the book, I mentioned it. I was going crazy. I said to my wife, they didn't call back. What's going on? She's sitting there smiling at me. Peggy, what's going on? I said, well, I called today. This is about 2.5 months later after I made my first conversation with them, okay, on the answer machine thing. So never give up. You don't know when the people who are your allies will be there to help you. Okay? It was just such an incredible experience. And people of, quote, faith came after me. I had death threats. But I'm from the Bronx. You don't mess with me, you know what I'm saying? It was scary. But you can't give up. I had a son. I had to make sure his future was safe. I have a wife. I had to make sure our family stayed together and was protected. Now, some people may disagree with me. That's your right. But you don't have the right to make up stories and bend stories and twist stories. Again, if you're teaching science, teach the science. If you have a contradiction to it, teach it in a history class. Because there's been conflicts throughout all of humanity about belief structures. This group against that group, this one fights that one. And when you come to the basis of it, some of these groups really believe in the same thing. So why are we fighting? Your faith should bring you to peace. As the trial went on, and I got death threats and things like that, there were protections offered to me. Eventually we won the case, and the sticker was coming out. Okay. They appealed. That's when I got involved with Americans United for Separation of Church and State. Okay. Now here's the point I want to make to you that I made a mistake on. The lawyers that were handling the case for the ACLU initially, okay, we won the case, but it went to appeal. I don't know who made the suggestion, but they said the lawyer that handled the initial case didn't have enough experience in appeals courts. So they had me switch lawyers. Don't ever do that. Whoever handles your case, and hopefully you don't ever have to go through this, they know the case. They know the insides and outs of it. Switching to a new lawyer, they have to learn the whole thing over again. So what happened was we wound up going to an appeals case, and Justice Robinson, the Supreme Court, was the guy who was in charge of that in the Southern District where we had the appeal. We had to go through that whole process. And he threw it down to the lower court. He said, well, we don't really see why this is happening, and it was a misjudgment. We'll throw it down and have it retried. Well, Cobb County did not want to spend the money on it again. Okay, we were ready to rock and roll with them. We didn't care. We were going to take them on because we knew we were right. Well, we wound up settling out of court because they didn't want to. Cobb County didn't want to spend the money. So they said, "We'll take the stickers out, and we will never, ever, ever challenge science in a science book again. History class, talk about the discrepancies throughout history of this group and that group and this and the other thing, that's fine, it's history. But not in the science class. So we won that case. Now, do you people all know Sam Owens?
I'm fourth thread lead.
Thank you. In our subdivision, where I was living at the time, I was on a board member of something there. And I used to go to these meetings of the Cobb County Commission. Sam Owens was there. Okay. Well, I went to one of the commission meetings, and they had a minister get up there, and he prayed to Jesus. Okay? That's all well and good in a church or in your home. If he got up there and prayed to Jehovah, I'd have a problem with it also. Okay, this is government. The United States Constitution does not use the word separation of church and state, but it is strongly implied in it. In fact, in the body of the Constitution, not even in the Bill of Rights, at the beginning, it says, there shall be no religious test to hold public office. That's a separation statement right there. There's several other places too. In the Georgia state constitution, they use the words separation of church and state. It says they will not give any money to any religious organizations that promote their religion over specific things that are happening in an organization. You know, they still can give a little bit of money to a group that's helping the poor, as long as that group is not proselytizing to the poor. We'll give you the money if you believe the way we tell you. You can't do that. So there's a real separation of church and state. Nationally, all the country, and in the individual states, some of them have the specific words. That doesn't repress religion. That protects your right to belief. It doesn't promote a competition of your belief structure to another one. Believe what you want to. It's in your heart. I do. That's my business, and whatever's out there is business between me and it, if there is something there. If you don't believe, that's okay. If you do believe, whatever it is, that's okay. You know why? We're indivisible. We're humans. We have a right to freedom of thought and freedom of the press. I'm not getting political because I'm not allowed to. I was telling some people before, there's two Jeffreys. There's this one over here. I'm president of the American United for Separation Church of State, the Atlanta chapter. We're a 501c3. We're issue-based. I cannot talk politics. Then there's Jeffrey over here from the Bronx. You don't mess with us. So I have to be careful what I say when I say it. That's basically my story. And the story is here. I speak. I wrote a book. Okay? I'm not making a fortune on a book. I don't want to. It's to get the message out. To encourage people to stand up for your rights as citizens, as human beings, whatever your belief is. I have stood up for people in all different kinds of places that have no understanding of what I grew up as a Jew. It drives me crazy when people start doing things like that. See me later, we'll talk about some other things going on that I don't want to talk about right now. Okay, that's basically my story. I'm here to encourage you all, or y'all, or you guys, however you want to say it, whatever part of the South you come from. Stand up for your rights. Believe what you want to. And even if somebody doesn't agree with it, they have the obligation to stand up next to you to protect that right. The founders wanted separation of church and state in this new country. Now I have a question. Are we a democracy?
Yes.
No. We're a constitutional democracy. We have laws and regulations that protect our constitutional democracy. And when it goes awry, we can adjust it. Okay, the Bill of Rights were addendums to the original Constitution to make certain things stronger and to change it to make it better. We've had referendums on it all the time, making new ones, making new statements, correcting what was wrong in the past. Women couldn't vote. That's crazy. They're citizens too. If it was up to some people, if you're gay or transgender, you can't vote. You've given up your humanity. What? That's ridiculous. We are indivisible individuals. That sounds like a contradiction, but each one of us, and everywhere in the world, has a right to be an individual. But as an individual, you're still indivisibly a human. I hope I'm getting my point across. Do you have any questions? I got answers, so ask them. Yes?
It was interesting when you said I'm a fellow New Yorker as well, so I feel like very much so. You talked about how the Georgia Constitution specifically talks about separation of church.
It uses the words.
Yet all of the TV ads, I'm sure you've seen them up in Atlanta too for the Senate races and all, they're all trying to out-Christian one another. And I'm so conflicted. They talk about wanting to protect the Constitution, but they talk about vote for me because I'm more Christian. I'm a real Christian. I'm a real conservative, whatever they want to spout. So how does that, if the state Constitution says separation, is there, how is that allowed to be?
It's not permissible within the Constitution, okay? But that refers to government. When people are running for an office, they're not the government yet, okay? So they can say what they want to as an ad to try to win those Christians over to them, okay? What you have to do, freedom of speech. Stand up, and we've done this, You get up and you run a counter ad. Not necessarily for the person that's running against them, but to challenge their statement. And if the person running against them, who's afraid to stand up to their statement, because they figure they'll lose the other side's vote, then individuals have to do it. Now, I would do it in a heartbeat, but you can't, because that's a political stand. You see, I'm a 501c3. We're a nonprofit. We can't take stands on individual people running. No political statements. We can make issue statements. Okay? And there's a kind of blurry line to say, well, that's an issue. They're lying about the Constitution in our state. Yeah, but as soon as I do that, then we raise another issue. And even though we'll win the case, they'll sue us. Okay? And we, like the lawyer that handled my case for the sticker, did it pro bono. ACLU didn't pay him anything. After we won the case and they had to pay, then he got a cut. I got nothing. Well, that's a lie. I got the sticker out. So, it's tricky. We do live in a free country. Yeah.
What if they're already in office and running again, and they do that same thing? They already are government officials who are.
You have to call them to task. If somebody robs a bank,
Right.
and the cops don't go after them, they get away with it. Things happen, rights, wrongs, everything. If you don't go after the wrong, and again, I'm sleepwalking. Okay, I use that term in the book. I'm sleepwalking through our democracy. I had a great job. I had enough coffee fund to take somebody out on a date. Teaching in New York, I was making $12,000 a year or something like that in the Bronx as a teacher. Couldn't afford coffee to take a date out. So I became a computer programmer. Came down here. Okay, bought a whiskey sour for my wife, and we got married. Uh-oh, I'm in trouble. Yes?
And here, what you said with all this literature that's often used to justify that position. What do you have to say about that?
Okay. The original founders. There's a thing that was started under Washington and signed by Jefferson, called the Treaty of Tripoli. Has anybody ever heard of it? Okay. What happened with the Treaty of Tripoli, there was a bunch of pirates in the Middle East attacking ships. Okay? And we needed an ally in the area to help us go against these pirates, because we didn't have the army and navy we have today. Okay? So we went to the Arab nations, and we said, we need your help. They said, we ain't messing with you, you're a Christian nation. So they got a treaty out there that specifically says the United States of America was not founded on the Christian religion. It was signed by everybody in the government at the time that was needed to sign something like that. And those Arab nations then came to our aid, and they beat up a couple of the pirates, and it started to die down. We had allies there that we needed because we couldn't do it alone. So for them to say we're a Christian nation, we're based on Christianity, no, we're not. And the reason we took the direction away from that was because the people in this country did not want the British monarchy's religion to tell them how to believe. They had become Baptists. They wanted to practice what they wanted and not have the government tell them what was right and wrong as far as faith. So when they start pulling that stuff, AU, Americans United, has thrown this out in ads also about the Treaty of Tripoli. Look it up. Okay. So they can say well, all they want to, but if we don't stand up and take ads out against what they're saying, okay, both their opponents in an election and individuals like us. Now, AU and ACLU can take a stand on certain things, and we have, but we have to be careful in politics, because again, we're 501c3s. We cannot participate in things like that, okay? Because that's personal belief, and we can't impose something on them that they're trying to impose on us. We can complain about it and get the government to say no, but you hear what I'm saying. It's not an easy line to walk, but it's a line that must be walked. Okay. Yes, sir.
I'm with the Unitarian Fellowship here, and we're based on a lot of progressive people. I'm wondering if UA or the ACLU, are there guidelines or help for us? But I think sometimes we come close to crossing that line. We don't want to lose our tax exemption status. And this has been an issue on the right also. How far churches can go before they
can't. There's a strong line. It's a brick wall in the sand. Okay? I've gone to places and spoken to people. I won't tell you where or how, but I've taken them aside and said, you can't do this. Okay? Not only are you a 501c3, but you have an extraordinary impact on your clergy, on the people that come in, the congregation. You can't tell them who to vote for like that. That's imposing religion on them, actually. You cannot do that in a political election. You can't. How do you get it done? You go to AC. Like I told you, it took me 2.5 months to get the ACLU to get going, because they have so many things to do. There's all these cases out there. Yes.
I was listening for the Unitarian guy in the back, but would atheists be welcome over the Unitarian Universalist Church?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of us there.
I couldn't hear.
He wanted to know if atheists are welcomed in the Universalist Church.
Yeah, they are. Me included.
Yes, sir.
What's your position on the Pledge of Allegiance?
Okay. I'll give you both what I understand. Mine first. The Pledge of Allegiance did not have under God in it when it was first written by a Baptist minister. It wasn't in there. It was put in it during the Eisenhower administration. Okay? It has no business being there. I don't know why it's still there. Okay? It's something that, you know, I've brought things up at meetings in Washington when I go every year, but there's so much happening that you know, AU, ACLU, any groups like that, they only have so much time and people to do it. Okay? For Americans United for Separation of Church and State, we just changed leadership. Barry Lynn, who'd been the head of Americans United for a number of years, he's my age, he's 72. He couldn't do it anymore. He's running out of gas. Now we have, get this one, a woman rabbi is now the executive director of Americans United. Okay, now that's liberal. Okay. So there's so much going on. Okay? Now, I'm not doing a business spiel. I'll get to you in a second. I'm not doing the business spiel now. Make sure you join these organizations. Contribute. Okay? If 1 million people give $1, they got $1 million. Give something. Get them going. They need that help. And if they win the case, they get some money back a little bit. But they do it free. It doesn't cost you anything. Okay? But it's important. There's so many issues. I'll get to you in a second if somebody else had their hand up here. Where's the person? You? Yeah.
I think I find it very interesting that some folks who would like to bring religion into the public sphere are now speaking in terms not of freedom of religion, but in terms of freedom of speech. And I think part of that is tied up with the fact that the freedom of religion, where Congress shall make no law prohibiting the exercise of religion, of the free exercise of religion, I think for some, if your faith mandates that you proselytize and that you witness, to tell you that you cannot do that, restricts your freedom, your religious freedom. And so I think that there's that's a problem within the wording of the amendment, because at least in our world today, where people believe that if I cannot witness, and if my freedom of religious speech is part and parcel of my faith, and you cannot restrict that, I think for many people it's, so I have that freedom, therefore freedom of religion to me means you are free to listen to me. And so I'd like you to comment on that, because I think that it's a matter of interpretation of the wording of the amendment, and it's a problem.
It's not a problem. It's made a problem by the people who are pushing their concepts. Freedom of speech is something we all have. If my rabbi, if the dude over at Johnson's Ferry Baptist Church, I'm bumping heads with him all the time, we'll get into that later, want to go out and say, hey, God is this guy, God is that guy, do this, do that, do this. They have every right to do that. And to advertise on TV. Okay? They have that freedom of speech. What they don't have, since they don't pay taxes, is to get up on the pulpit and talk to their congregation they have in the palm of their hands. Okay? Because these people don't want to think about that issue. They accept what you tell me. Okay? I want you to vote for Barack Obama. Yeah, like they do that. I want you to vote for this dude, or that girl, or this guy. That they can't do. Because,
Absolutely.
Okay, because that's not blocking their freedom of speech. Okay? Because they can go out and say, love Jesus, love Jehovah, love, here's my old brain, 72 now, it flips. Allah. Okay? They have every right to do that. They can't tell you because you're a Christian, because you're a Jew, because you're a Muslim, you got to vote for this dude or this girl. They can't do that because that's stepping up. You want to pay taxes? Give up your 501c3? Say anything you want to. You're paying taxes to make that statement because now you're entering politics. Okay?
how does that work if a candidate comes to do that?
He can be, brought in front of a judge. Somebody wants to sue him.
But that happens often, right? Candidates go.
Well, see, I'm not a lawyer, so as you were saying, it's stuff working my brain around. If the candidate is saying it, okay, you have to evaluate where the money's coming from. Okay? If he's saying it, and he's using his own pocketbook, he's not getting money from somebody else as a donation. So he's talking as an individual now. I'm not a lawyer, so this is an assumption I'm making, but it makes sense to me. If I run a TV ad, and I only got $100 in my wallet, and I need $200 to do it, so I'm getting money from you to run the ad, that I can't do. Because it ain't my money. That's not free speech anymore. Now you're transgressing over a different part of the law.
But if the candidate goes to a church and they take up a love offering for them,
that they can't do.
okay.
That they can't. From my understanding, they can't do that. Okay. Yeah, question? I thought I saw your hand come up.
Oh, me?
Yeah.
No,
Oh,
sorry.
that was me earlier.
Okay.
Can you tell us a little bit about what American United is focusing on now? Do you have anything in the works as far as lawsuits or what?
You
What is
got a
your-
1,000-page book? We are so, and again, I'm making certain assumptions here also because I'm in this group in the Atlanta area. We have another group that's even more active than us, okay? And I'll be honest with you, okay? I'm an activist. I'm out there screaming and yelling and making people understand there's certain things you can and cannot do. I am the most disorganized president in the universe. The only one that beats me is, I can't say it because I know you. Wink, wink. So you have to get out there and get more people involved. You know? There are so many things that AU is covering right now. From, supporting candidates from the pulpit. That's an absolute no-no. We brought a gazillion suits in that. Okay? When charity money is being used for specific religious beliefs, even though they've advertised to help humanity. Okay? Things like that happen. Just the violations that people conceive as separation of church and state. They can approach us. We give it to our lawyers. Okay? Things like, I get calls periodically from different schools around the Atlanta area. These teachers are making these kids pray before class. These guys are taking a knee during a football game. Well, if one guy wants to take a knee during a football game, that's his business. The coach can't get up there and say, do it. That's right. Okay? If it's in your heart, you do it. The coach can't say, you're not playing anymore if you don't pray to this dude. Okay? The ACLU has more than one issue. They cover the entire Bill of Rights. Americans United for separation of church and state does that one issue. The reason it was formed, I'll get to you in 1 second, okay? The reason it was formed, okay, and the organization is old as I am. In 1946-47, after the war, we all know you go to school and you pledge allegiance to the flag. Okay? The Jehovah's Witnesses only pledge allegiance to Jehovah, the Jewish God, but they ain't Jewish. Okay? It's all perspective. But they only pledge allegiance to Jehovah. So here these little kids in 1st and 2nd grade, Jehovah's Witnesses, are in public school, and they're pledging allegiance to the flag. It's a violation of their right of belief. Okay? A lawsuit takes place. They win. So now, officially, but not always, obviously, because you've got to keep tracing bad things, they are not allowed to force children to pledge allegiance to the flag. Okay? The kid wants to do it, but here's the thing. Even if the kid knows he shouldn't be doing it because of his religious belief, there's all this power around him, of all the other kids. What are they going to think about me? I'm going to be ostracized. They're going to beat me up after school if I don't do what they're all doing. That's one of the things that happens with football teams also. When the coach says, all right, everybody take a knee now, whether they believe or not, whether they're Muslim or Jew or Christian. Gee, I want to play football. If I don't do this, I'm out. Down I go. That's intimidation. That's not what education is about. I taught for 10 years. My kids could do what was in their heart, as long as it wasn't violent. Okay? This is an ongoing battle. That's why groups like that I'm involved in now have to be supported. And I'm not looking for money. That's not what I'm saying. You support it through your heart, through your activity. I'm a volunteer. I've been doing this since 2004. I don't get paid for this, but I do. You know how? My country stays freer. If you don't stand up for your rights, they go right out the window. You have a question?
Yes, sir. I'm a very logic-based kind of a person, so you can imagine the difficulties I'm having currently. When I hear about your case, I'm stymied because the ACLU stepped up and went after a sticker in a book. And yet, the National Prayer Breakfast, which is in direct violation of separation and establishment, happens every year. On government property, is attended by all the members of Congress, saying to the world, we are a Christian nation. And here's the proof.
They don't use the words Christian
They
nation.
don't say Christian, yeah. But you don't see a bunch of Muslims there. You don't see any imams. You don't see, well, I don't know if they may have a rabbi, but I've never seen one there. Okay? How do they continue to allow this every year? And the organization which sponsors it, the fellowship, you may have read the New York Times bestseller, A Family, they're down on C Street in D.C., has over 60 prayer groups exclusively made of members of government that meet in government buildings, and it's a Christian organization, it's an evangelical Christian organization. And the ACLU does nothing. If I can use a metaphor, you have a big tree that's in the way. So you go up there with a pair of scissors and you snip off a little leaf. And you leave the tree.
I don't disagree, however, the tree is huge.
Yes, it is.
Okay? There's only so much. Like I said before, you have to contribute. I contribute some money, and I'm retired, so there's a limit there. But I donate my time as best as I can to one specific organization. Okay? I go to things like this to talk about, you've got to stand up. They're useless without you. Get to you 1 second, okay? So why do they let them get away with it? Because, like my sticker case, in my brain and in a lot of brains that I've talked to, carries more weight than that because they're working with little kids that need to know real science. Okay? Because that's going to lead to the future down the road. So you have to take priorities as to which cases you're going to take and how are they going to be effective going down the line. Okay? Because I agree with you. I don't like that that's done. Okay? And the congressmen, they talk about the swamp. It is a swamp. We have term limitations on the president. Why aren't there on Congress people? Why do they get pensions? Well, they're going to play to their base. Okay? The base, you know, because there's fewer of us screaming and yelling about the rest of them. Most people accept whatever faith they've been given to at birth by their parents. Okay? I have my beliefs, and you have yours. Atheists and agnostics, they have their understandings. But push comes to shove, money talks. Okay?
The Koch brothers. And they have the Koch brothers. And their 500 network.
So they stay in power. If you put, which ain't going to happen tomorrow, term limits down, and say, even if you have 5 years as a congressman, or 5 terms as a senator, You ain't getting no pension. Why am I paying the pension for you? You're going to take my Social Security away that I put in? It's an entitlement. You know why? I paid for it. But when you look at pushing religion, well, they got to pay attention to what most of their people are talking about. Even though atheism, agnosticism, millennium's moving away from family beliefs, is growing, they ain't outnumbered yet. And Congress is going to do what it can to stay in power. And that's why groups like AU, ACLU, and others, they have to pick and choose where they know they can really make a difference. My case was real important to them because it's education. Okay? Science is the future. Okay? It's just engineering, all that other stuff. So they pick and choose. You can't imagine how... I told you, it took like almost 3 months before they contacted me again. They are so busy. And the ACLU has... They cover the Bill of Rights. They don't just do separation like AU does. And AU is overburdened. ACLU has offices in all the states. Paid lawyers working there. Paid people working there. AU is all volunteer. The only place we have lawyers is in Washington. So when you come across something like we're talking about now, our club is there. It's got one nail in it. You can't hit the bad guy too many times, Doesn't penetrate, but we do win occasionally. Again, ACLU won my case, my first case with the sticker. AU settled it. Okay? They may not have picked it up if it wasn't already proven. See? And I don't like that I'm answering it this way, but that's the truth. We have to be out there supporting these groups so they can support us. And I'm not fundraising for anybody, okay? And I'm retiring from it soon. I got nothing from this, except to get a platform to go on. Yeah. So please, pay attention to what your needs are. Contact them, and if they don't get back to you, keep after them. Persistence, persistence, persistence. So, yes?
So why do states feel they need RFRA legislation if we have federal legislation?
Okay. Federal law says states can't impose things on American citizens. Okay? But there are certain levels within a state that if people don't challenge it, on the national level, the state can get away with it. Because unless you stand up, it ain't going to happen. Like I was sleepwalking through this whole thing. For both my cases, yeah, it's okay. I won the first one, second one. Where did that second one come from? You have to make the statement. They can do anything they want to until somebody stands up and gets in their face. And that's why I make these speeches. You have to get in their face. You first.
So if Brian Kemp won, he said he was going to sign the anti-gay religious freedom thing, and if he won, would a judge be able to rule that unconstitutional?
Yes. Gays are citizens.
Yeah.
Okay? That's a totally religious belief about gayness. See me later. I have a story I could tell about that.
Okay. In Columbus, Georgia, in 1977, they would go alphabetically in the schools' classrooms, and each child had a particular date that they had to bring in a Bible reading to have in the morning, first thing. And that was, so Rob Koch, I don't know if any of you guys know Rob Koch, who used to be here, had children in the schools at that time, in the public schools. And so he decided that we were all non-religious. And he decided that this was unacceptable, that there was a separation, should be a separation. And his children, actually all he really wanted was for his children to not have to be in the lineup and bring in a Bible reading, right? So the school district was unwilling to allow
that tradition to be absolved for his children. And so he decided to bring a suit. And so I don't know if any of you old timers remember Dick Larner, who was the resident atheist in Columbus at the time, and was very familiar. Some of y'all remember him? And he was the one who had close association with the newspaper, the television channels, such as they were, that called two of them. And so he was the one who was accustomed to dealing with publicity issues regarding religious, non-religious stuff. So we formed a little coalition. I took care of the money because there were people who donated money for this cause. Rob brought the suit, Rob Koch, and Dick Lerner handled the publicity. And we brought a suit against the school district here to stop having to actually take children out of the lineup. ACLU came in, took care of it. There was no more Bible reading in the schools. Not only not required, where you were going to have to read your chosen Bible scripture, but altogether, this was not even a voluntary option. So anyway, that was what happened in 1977, right here in Columbus, Georgia, within the Cobb County School District. Now, I will tell you that the only thing that I can tell, because that is still a little bit of a concern, that is still going on, is they do have a thing called prayers around the flagpole.
Yeah.
And so they do this like at 7 o'clock in the morning, and the best I could tell was that my complaint about this being on school property was that it was not occurring during school hours. Now, my days of rabble-rousing are probably past, and nobody else seems to be really concerned about this. But they still do have a prayers around the flagpole on a particular day designated on the school property, and that's the only thing. Is there any...
This has gone through the courts already, from my understanding. And it's not during school hours, as you said.
Right.
Okay. Number two, they say it is not enforced on the child. That's bull. Because young children are influenced by what's going on around them. Just to feel like, they're always bullying me. I think I better do it, They don't take that into consideration.
I think that's just high school. Isn't it? Just high school?
It was at Clubview when my kids were at Clubview.
But even if it was just high school, when they did the prayers for the football team to take a kneel, and not for the Pledge of Allegiance or anything, but to pray before a game. Let me tell you, I was a student, as all you are. I was also a teacher. Kids do not want to feel isolated. They want to feel part of their group. Especially if they're shy and they don't have many friends. They don't want to be ostracized. So there's this power that group making you pray. Well, they're not making you pray, they say. But the intimidation of the social aspect of this is making you pray. And these kids wind up getting sucked into it.
Whether they're buying into it or not.
But they do it on the surface, which makes it look, well, nobody's bitching about it, let's get ahead with it.
Right. But it really got ugly back in the day, in 1977. It got really ugly because all the three of us needed to make ourselves known that they wanted to send money. They made it out to this and sent it to me, and I had to manage the bank account. And if they wanted anything, interviews and stuff, it went to Dick Larner, and Rob was the front man with the ACLU and on the suit. And so it really did get very ugly.
Yeah.
It got very threatening. There were, it was really...
Well, because of suits like that, okay, and I'm not sure when this whole procedure started, but Jane and John Doe lawsuits came into existence, where you could hide behind a screen, bring the lawsuit. The court knew who you are and who was complaining and making the complaint. But it wasn't released to the public because it was recognized it was danger. and they couldn't put people in place. So always remember, if you've got a complaint that you want to file against the government or things like that, you can go clandestinely and do it. And the ACLU-AU will do that with you. Okay?
Maybe,
Nobody told me that, by the way, so I'm letting you know.
yeah, maybe today, 40 years ago, I'm not sure.
40 years ago, this was an entirely different country.
Absolutely.
There's more knowledge out there. The internet gets information out. This gets information out. There's conflicts that are out in the open that people can really see and feel, gee, I could do it this way now. When 10 years ago, I couldn't do it that way. So we're more emboldened now than we were in the past. Okay? Nobody told me John Doe. Okay? I would have hidden. I didn't want to put my wife in danger or my son in danger. I told you, I got death threats. One in particular scared the hell out of me. I get this letter in the mail, and the guy has his return address on it. And it says, I'm calling upon this, that, and the other thing, and I'm calling upon the God of Jesus, Joseph, and whatever. He didn't use Muhammad, because trust me, he wasn't Muslim. To bring you to justice. Okay? I don't care whether I'm from the Bronx or Queens. That scared me. Okay? So I call up, I tell the cops that. The cops go to this guy. And I don't trust the cops all the time. And I didn't trust him this time after he came back to me. He says, oh, Mr. Selman, don't you worry about it. This guy's in a senior living center over there. He's in a wheelchair. He can't do anything. Well, maybe he's got money. He can hire somebody. They didn't even pay attention to that. So whenever you run into a situation and you want to complain about it, don't go to one place. Go through many channels. Okay? After the cops came back and told me, oh, he's in a wheelchair, don't worry about him, can't do anything to you. I went to the ACLU, and they wrote a letter to the local police station, okay, and to the, whatever, the Cobb County Commission, saying, you make sure these people don't say things like that and do their job the right way. So I didn't stop at one level. And I was trusting. I went out and just called the cops. You have to make sure more than one area of this society knows what's happening so that you are truly protected. And once that happened, the ACLU brought attention to it, got messages back saying, we're sorry. You know, he's okay. Okay. So, I believe we understand. You have a question?
It's more of a comment.
Okay.
When I think back to when I was growing up in the 50s, maybe it's because I grew up in a Jewish neighborhood, but you know, we went to school and we did the school thing. After school, secret school, on Sundays it was religious school. And my Christian friends, the same thing. How did this all of a sudden become so enmeshed in our everyday lives?
I think the statement I made before is valid. It's no longer faith. It's a business. And once you get competition, and people disagree with me, well, go ahead. It's a free country, freedom of speech. I'm telling you, it's a business. Okay? Some of the groups that I've been involved with are absolutely spiritual. Others, the Johnson Ferry Baptist Church, give me a break. Okay? I don't know, I tell this story so many times, I don't know if I told it here yet. We march every year in the Cobb County Parade. Did I mention this before? Okay, every year Cobb County has there's a woman who has a business there where she does promotions for businesses. And every year she has the East Cobb Parade. Every year Americans United marches in it. Through several years we participated in a festival after the parade. But it was in an area that was multi-businesses and stuff like that. It was open to everybody. Well, they converted that into a senior living center. They ripped down all the stores and built up these buildings. So she needed a new place to be able to put the festival on. Okay. Well, Johnson's Ferry Baptist Church, sorry. Okay, so it was intentional. Offered her their parking lot to do the festival. Well, we signed up last year. They said that group can't go there. Well, I don't want to destroy this woman's business, but it was in the Marietta Daily Journal, the NJC grabbed hold of it, and she got terrified that this was going to destroy her business. So I had to go after several political groups, say, back off, I'll handle this. Okay? Well, I went after Johnson's Ferry Baptist Church to have discussions with them and stuff like that. They wouldn't respond. One of my co-presidents is a Baptist minister. They wouldn't respond to him. So they're having the parade again this year. We're marching again. I called her, and said, we're not going to try to do the festival at Johnson's Ferry because I don't want to mess you up. Okay? Well, I'm retiring, so I don't know what I'm going to do about it next year. We'll see. But I'm not going to mess this person's business up because of this other jerk. And I don't use that word haphazardly. I'm hoping at some point that I can sit down and go to his congregation and not debate him over these issues, but just lay out my story and let him lay out his story in front of people. And let him know that what he's doing is wrong. It's not a violation of separation of church and state, because he owns that property. The lady that does the parade told me one time that there was a chiropractor that wanted to have a booth at the festival at the old center where they had the businesses. But there was another chiropractic office there. And so the chiropractor that had the office in the place where they were going to have the booths complained, saying, I pay rent here and you're bringing in competition. No. So that was the grounds and they put him out. I'm not in competition with Johnson's Ferry Baptist Church, Catholic Church, Jewish synagogue, Reform, non-Reform. I'm not. I'm here to say you have a right to believe what you want to. And I will defend that right. I'm not anti-faith. I'm not anti-faith. Indivisible. We're human. Follow your heart. Okay? We'll see where it goes. Yes?
How do you feel about having polling places for elections in church facilities?
Okay. This is Jeffrey. This is AU president. It's wrong. Okay? It's wrong. We have public schools all over the place. Growing up, as you guys from the Bronx and other places know, you went to school to do it. The school was closed that day. Election was all day long. Okay? Here, you go into the churches, and even though they're careful, some of them are careful, to make sure there's no story about the people who are running, they still have, come to our festival on Thursday for Jesus. Come to our festival on Friday for Jehovah. Come to our festival here for this God or that God or this. These people are coming in to vote. And all these free ads are there to get you into their business. Now, I may be people yelling and screaming, you can't talk like that. Yeah. You're going into a place that's selling a product. Why? Cover all this stuff up. You want to use the building because there's nothing else available? Cover this stuff up. They don't let you put signs up for this candidate or that candidate 100 feet from the polling place. So why do you have the right then to put up your free ad? You know, you want to use your place of worship? Pay me $1,000 so we can use it. Well, that's extreme, I know that, but it's something I just came up with.
You think winning these individual cases has brought about more popular support? And what do you think the role of popular support is in accomplishing, a true separation of church and state?
Again, I was kind of dumb. I made assumptions. My whole family fought in World War II. I have a first cousin? Yeah, I'm a second cousin. They lived in a cave outside of Germany, hiding from the Nazis. Okay? I had an uncle who was shot and captured and escaped. So, might have a topic. What was your question?
My question was, do you think that there's more popular support now that you've won some of these cases, and what do you think the role is of popular support? Because a lot of these are representing people who are marginalized anyways, like minorities anyways.
The popular support, when you win cases, lasts for a little time. Because then the assumption, which I have already made, protected. No, it's not. How many times do people who serve in jail for a robbery or something like that, they get 3, 4, 5 years, then they get out, and they have a record, so they can't get a job. So guess what they do? They come rob again. This is constantly occurring. Just because you win a case like I did, we got to keep our eyeballs on this. They tried slipping in something a long time ago in Cobb County with the science curriculum. As soon as I heard about it, I called them up and said, "You're going to owe me a lot of money." We backed off real quick. They said, "Well, they didn't have a right to sign off for us in the future." Yes, they did, because you were violating the whole principle. You teach the subject in the class, not some other subject that you want people to learn. I got a phone call from, what's the name of it? It's public broadcasting. NPR was doing the thing. You know the sticker on the license plates that said, "One nation under God," or whatever it says, "In God we believe," okay? Well, they called me up. They wanted me, because I had already won 2 cases. "What do you think, Mr. Selman?" Got quiet on the phone for a second. I said, "Mr. Selman, you there?" I said, "You have to ask me? You don't know?" Well, they said, "We're taking this. Can we redo it?" So we had to redo it. I said, "If they dare to try to put that on my car, they are going to lose a major lawsuit. I don't like it on my money, but it's not really my money because it moves back and forth between my hands. So while I can complain about it, I really don't have any power to do something about it. This is my car. You ain't putting it on it." And so the state government backed off, and they made it, I think you pay $3 or $4 to get a sticker to put on your car. You can put any sticker on it you want. Mine says Cobb County. Okay? You have to always pay attention. Just because you won doesn't mean you're going to keep it.
So popular support's not really dependable.
Say again?
So it's more like it's a popular support's not really as dependable as...
It's dependable, but you got to keep it going.
Okay.
You know? If you're a singer and you have a great album, and you never make another album, you lose. You got to stay in their face. Did you want to say something?
Yes. So my major is theater education. I was very involved in my theater department when I was in high school. And we did a production of All Shook Up, which has a character in it that believes that he might be gay. And our music director refused to be involved in it because of her religious beliefs, and she is the choral director of the school. So do you think that was like unconstitutional for her to refuse to do it, because she did it like every year, you know? So
She has the right to say no. They have the right to get somebody to replace her for that episode. Okay? When you have a religious belief, you can't be forced to go against it. Unless, and I don't mean they can make you do it, there's a situation that you're imposing your belief on the general population. You know? It's like the guy who, I don't believe in gay marriage, so I'm not making a cake. No. You pay taxes, the gay dude or girl pay taxes. Those taxes built that road that brought that flour and sugar to your bakery shop to make that. It also brings all these clients to buy your cake. So don't tell me you can't do it. If you're opening a public business, you're open to the public, who pays the taxes to keep you in business. That's why Hobby Lobby is lunatic also. But I don't know why the Supreme Court can't understand what I just said. It's so obvious.
Because they're religious.
Not all of them. Thank God for Gator Ginsburg. Never mind.
I think I would respond to your question about popular support. It's not really a matter of popular support. It's not a popularity contest, and that vigilance is absolutely necessary. If we look at where people were not vigilant in protecting their constitutional rights, those rights disappeared and they were subverted by people who use various legal freedoms in order to destroy freedom and in order to subvert freedom. And so this is not a popularity contest, and really it's
Correct.
easy to get underneath and see it alive. So you have to be vigilant, and you have to speak up, and you have to say, these are our freedoms, these are our civil institutions, these are our patriotic ideals, and you just have to keep vigilant.
Yeah. One of the terms I always use was sleepwalking through our democracy. Just because it's in paper doesn't mean it's going to be guaranteed. You got to keep standing up and say, look what it says. And if you misinterpret it, let's bring it to court and get it cleared. You have to stay awake.
Does Cobb County still start a commission meeting in prayer?
What happened with that case, because Sam Olin says he won. When he ran for Attorney General, he says, I took on the ACLU and I beat him. No, he didn't. Okay? Because, and the reason they lost, they had a secretary at the Cobb County Commission who picked people or groups to give the invocation. Okay? She crossed out of the phone book the Mormon religion. That's why I won. Because it wasn't open to everybody. And after we won, Ed Buckner, who's an avowed atheist, and he was president of an international or national atheist group for a while. Good guy, I love him. He's really open-minded, doesn't condemn people of faith or anything, doesn't try to push the stuff, but he believes what he believes. Okay? He said, what's going on here? Okay? I'm going to go and give an invocation at the Cobb County Commission meeting. Because my religious belief is none. So they don't have a right to stop me. So he went up there and he gave his invocation saying, people of no faith have a faith not to be able to do this. And you can't force us to do it. So Sam Olins immediately went out, it was in the papers, saying, Ed Buckner is barred from doing any more invocations because he made this political. Excuse me? Well, we all know where Sam Olins is now. He finally got fired. Okay? He's in it for the money. Or was. Okay? He was Attorney General. I'll take the job. Okay? It's a lot of money. But then he got the chance to take over Kennesaw State to make even more money. So he gives up his job, not even through not running next time, he just quits in the middle of it and takes over Kennesaw State as the head there. Then he goes against the cheerleaders because they didn't want to go out and do the Pledge of Allegiance because they were standing up for the right not to because they had other issues. So he throws them all off. Well, then the State Board of Ed finally woke up. He said, you can't do that. And they fired him. And I'll show you what a hypocrite he is. Maybe I shouldn't do this, but I'm going to do it anyway because he's attacked me enough too. He was invited to speak at the synagogue that I attend, or used to attend, to the Brotherhood. Well, I heard he was coming. So I sent a note saying, I'm going to be there, but I'm not going to say anything. Because I'm going to let him just talk. Well, he comes to the Brotherhood, and I'm sitting there, quiet. And he starts saying, yeah, when I was running for Attorney General, I was in a deep part of Georgia in the South. And the ministers were up there, and all the word came to me from these people with the ministers saying, don't vote for the Jew. And I just looked up at him, and I walked out. Didn't say a word, but I made a statement. Here he was, defending his monetary position in Cobb County, hoping to advance himself. He's a hypocrite. He's a hypocrite. Those people had no right to say it from their pulpit. It's political. And I didn't find out about that until he said it there, and the issue was already dead. Can't bring a lawsuit. Being vigilant is difficult, but we have to do it. Some things show up and some things don't show up very rapidly. And some people might say in their heart right now, why do you pick on Sam Olds? He's out, he's gone. I'm just making an example for the future, so when we see other people that do things like that for their own self-interest and not the people they're supposedly serving, you got to stand up against them. Any other questions? Yes?
Isn't the Religious Liberty Task Force that Jeff Sessions is forming, wouldn't that be a violation of church and state?
Yes. The ACLU is already looking into it, from what I understand. His statement the other day, where he said, how did he phrase it? I forgot exactly how he said it. He said something that you have to follow laws. It's in the Bible. It says you have to obey the laws of the government.
Oh, the Romans.
Hey, excuse me, I am not doing what Hitler said.
It's Romans.
And that, by the way, is not the Bible, by my understanding. That's the sequel. They tried to get some sort of thing going in Cobb County, where I was invited to this meeting with the cantor from the temple we attended. And they brought up this whole thing about interpreting, you know, they kept saying the New Testament and the Old Testament. So I brought up that joke. I said, excuse me, we are the Bible, you are the sequel. And they didn't like that, got quiet in the room. But that's never stopped the Bronx boy from talking. So, the message, you have to pay attention. You can't make assumptions that it's all right because we live in an indivisible country. That's the theory, the reality of the system. It is not the theory of the actuality. We have a hypothesis of constitutional democracy. If you don't keep forcing for it to be real, it's going to go away. You have to constantly stand up to protect all of our rights. I don't care what color you are, what religion you believe in, whether you're bald or you got hair. That was funny, come on. You have to stand up. You have to stand up. Any more questions? Okay.